We're go.
We are live. How's everybody
doing? Yeah. Doing good. How are you, Dustin?
I am good. Great start. Welcome to the Daily Average Bowlers podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Capps. With me is the pillar of knowledge, our CEO, local pro, Coach Michael Price. What's going on, Coach?
Doing good. How y'all doing today?
We are doing good. This is episode, which is we're very excited for. And Mike, why don't you tell us who we got on the panel today?
Well, we're really rocking it out today, aren't we?
Yes.
First and foremost, thanks, guys, for joining us. I just want to take the time here for those of you that are watching on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. If anybody has any questions, let us know here, because Dustin is going to take the helms here. I am just here because my name is on it, and I don't have a suit like Dustin, so I have not leveled up to that just yet. So, Dustin, you're the man. Take it away, my friend.
Well, let's get to our guest. Melanie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I don't have a suit today either. I feel like me and Michael should go shopping.
Oh, quite all right. I appreciate it, though. Well, you have plenty of suits that you wear in the fitness industry type thing. And interestingly enough, you inspired one of Mike's TikToks a couple weeks ago.
I did, yeah. I posted a video of just a upper body arm workout routine that I do, and one of the exercises was hammer curls, and Michael took that as hammer bowling ball curls. So I thought that was pretty funny. And at first I was like, wait a second. I got the notification. I was like, what the heck is this? And I saw it. It gave me a really good laugh.
Oh, I thought it was a perfect fit. As soon as I saw that, I was just one of those where I had to clap for it.
Yeah, the same here. I was like, you can't tell me that anybody else has made that joke before. That was an original one.
And it was. As soon as you hear hammer curls, it's like, that's perfect. Why haven't I used that?
Exactly.
Were you aware that you were a genius, Michael? Did you know that already, or?
No, it's kind of like George Carlin used to say, I've got a lot of great ideas. The problem is most of them suck.
That was a good one, though. What weights did you use? Were they 12s?
That's what I used. I don't know about Michael with the bowling balls, but
Mike.
Yeah, I think mine was 12.
Yeah.
Those were 15s, y'all.
Whoa.
Those are my own bowling balls. And the funny thing about that is like I got a lot of a couple people picking on me. They were like, "What weight are those for real? Are you sure those are 15?"
Yeah, tiring pretty quick, and even 15 pounds. That's bicep is not a very big muscle. It gets strained pretty quick.
Yeah, especially if you're with the bowling ball, like you don't get a good grip on those. You just have your fingers in those. So I was kind of surprised to see that you were curling them as easily as you made it look.
He's putting in that work.
Definitely.
Just like I am here replying to everybody on TikTok right now.
Awesome. Well, hey, yeah, with everyone, Mike's going to be answering the questions, but also we are live. We do them live so you can interact with us instead of just watching them past it. So if you have any questions, shoot them out, and Mike will share them, and we'll get you answered. So, Melanie, we spoke earlier before we went live. You got into bowling when you were about 9, and then kind of the tail end, Mike was like, oh, by the way, the fitness stuff. So when did you first realize, well, let's just start with bowling. When did you start bowling?
Yeah. So I was only 9 years old whenever I started bowling. My mom, I think it was a summer league that she got me signed up on. There was a ad in the newspaper, and she was for the youth bowling league. And she said to me, like, hey, do you want to give this a try? Because she always encouraged my sister and I to try out different things, see what we're going to like. And I remember not really thinking much of it at the time. I was like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. Something to do this summer. Saturday mornings, like, why not? But after that first season, she asked me, like, hey, do you want to do this in the fall too? and I'd had a lot of fun. So I was like, sure, why not? And that quickly turned into a couple years that led me straight up into high school, that I was bowling on this youth league every Saturday morning. I remember it was only like $7 a week starting out. And now I would love to be able to bowl for $7 a week, but we know that's not gonna, we know that doesn't exist anymore.
That was the good old days.
Yeah. Yeah.
$7, I think these days will cover shoe rentals if you don't have them.
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. So, well, after in high school, I ended up getting away from youth league in the second half of high school. My high school tried to have a bowling team. I joined and did that for a year. And then my senior year, I started working, ironically, in a bowling alley. So I was still there. I was still bowling quite a bit, and bowling in the summer whenever I could, that sort of thing. In college, I went to a college that didn't have an actual bowling team, but we did have a bowling club. So I got involved with that. And remember, it was just every Wednesday, there was a group of us that would just get together, go bowling. And it was a lot of fun. I made a few friends through that way, and it was something to look forward to as well. And I even became president of our bowling club for 1 year. So very involved. I took it from whenever I first started, there was only a small group of us that would go. So we tried like marketing ourselves on campus a bit better. And that's actually what my degree is in too. So it kind of went hand in hand for me. And by the end of that year, whenever I was ready to graduate, we had a lot more active members of that club. I think we were able to double the amount of people who showed up consistently, which was great, being that it was college and it was just kind of like a more relaxed thing. It wasn't very competitive or anything like that. So yeah, that took me through college, and after that point, I didn't get to bowl for a couple years, just being straight out of college and very poor. Bowling was just not in the budget for a little while.
Melanie, let me ask you this: what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Ooh, that's a good question. I always kind of changed my mind around a little bit. The thing that I remember being hooked on the most for a while was I wanted to be an entomologist, like study bugs. Mm-hmm. I used to love just catching butterflies in the backyard whenever I was a young kid. So I always thought it was interesting. But as I got older, I realized the math part is not a very big, strong suit of mine. And so anything science related as I got older became more of a, yeah, it's cool, but it's not kind of the thing for me. So for me, with the marketing side, I do a lot more of the creative parts of it. So I write a lot, make emails, blog posts, ebooks, things that I consider to be fun. But it's interesting because there's also like another side of marketing that has a lot more of that like math and numbers behind it. So there's a couple coworkers of mine where I say, I don't know what they do. I'm just going to let them keep on doing it because that means I don't have to do it. So there's two different sides to it. And I'm happy that I get to be more on the creative side.
So you're basically saying math was your worst subject in school and English was your best?
It slowly became that way. Let's just say I took advantage of the fact that I took an algebra class early in middle school. And by the time I was a senior in high school, I had all my credits. And by that point, like all of the trigonometry and geometry and stuff, all of that math was just kind of a little little more difficult. I kind of tapped out at algebra, and I was like, okay, this is all I really got to understand. So by that point, I was like, you know what? I don't have to take a math class. I'm not going to. And I took a extra art class instead. So I had like 3 separate art classes my senior year of high school, which was really fun for me.
Mine was very similar. I just had 3 gym classes. It was great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So at the time when you were doing the bowling and going through college and everything else, were you already very active as far as just like training, whether it was bowling or not? When did you find yourself in the gym regularly, as well as like, hey, I'm going to fuel my body correctly too with meal prep and things like that? When did that type of stuff start?
So I'd say that both of those things were a bit staggered. So I had always been a very active kid growing up, just trying different sports and being outside as much as I could and whatnot. But I really started getting more into the gym in college. I had ran cross country in high school, so that kind of introduced me to the gym a little bit, because there was days where part of our practices or training or whatnot was not only would we run, but we would have like a couple weightlifting sessions and whatnot. So I kept running in college a little bit. And of course, I was in Pennsylvania at the time. So there's only so much time that you can run outside enjoyably in Pennsylvania, which very quickly drove me into the gym. Now, the gym at the college I went to, it had a tiny track inside. It was not very enjoyable to run on, but I would every now and then. And they also had different fitness classes there that the students could go to for free. So I started out with those, and then slowly got more into like the weightlifting side. Started out with the weightlifting machines, and then slowly went into the free weight section. So by the end of college, I was really comfortable in the gym. So it was a slow journey, but over the course of college, I definitely got there and just continued to lift weights after that point. And I'd say it was probably post-college, I got more into the meal prep side of things. Life just got busier with working away from home. And like, I had a job after college for a little bit that it was about 30 minutes away from my house at the time. So it's not like I could just go home on my lunch break or anything and like cook some food and eat it. And I didn't really feel like eating Chick-fil-A every day. So that's where the meal prep kind of started for me. It was almost out of necessity. But then as I got more into it, I realized that, oh, I can make things better than like dry chicken to take to work with me that's actually tastes good and is good for me. So slowly got into that, just trial and error, honestly, following different videos and recipes and stuff that I've found online and seeing what things that I enjoy. And then also just kind of taking things that I already would cook for myself sometimes and just adjusting that to be a little bit more microwave friendly. I was not a big fan of chicken out of the microwave and never have been. So
what are some of your favorite meals to do to prep that you, other than dry chicken? Because I know exactly what you mean. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to do this again. What are some that you found that are your favorite meals to prep that you enjoy the most?
So I recently discovered these chicken meatballs from Sam's Club. They have like mozzarella in them, and they have a lot of protein in them as well. They're really good. So I've recently done a like just pasta with vegetables and sauce and a few of those meatballs. That has been a really easy one too, because the meatballs are already cooked. So I can just kind of prep everything really fast. And well, for this week, I actually did end up making chicken already. I actually found a recipe that includes chicken and rice, but there's a sauce on the chicken that is really good, and it actually heats up well in the microwave and whatnot. So I found that is a lot better. And there was a sauce that was part of the recipe that definitely makes everything come together a little bit easier in that recipe. But outside of that, I've also done breakfast as well. I'm not one of those people who's going to wake up straight in the morning and like go cook breakfast. Absolutely not. So my favorite thing to do then is pancakes, surprisingly. There's the Kodiak cakes, add some extra protein to them, fruit, honey. So good.
Yeah. Most important question, what is your favorite cheat meal?
Ooh. I don't like to consider them cheat meals. Because it's just food. It's just all food. But if I eat something that's gonna be like more than what I would normally eat or whatnot, it's either going to be Mexican food from a restaurant or barbecue ribs. One of those two.
I can tell you this, in her TikTok video, she's got some good recipes that she posts. I think you did one with like the chicken breast or whatever, and then you added a bunch of stuff to it. I was like, oh, I said, I may have to try to replicate this.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm trying to slowly get through all of my recipes that I have like a set group in my rotation that I like to frequently go back to. So I'm trying to get videos of all of those posted on my TikTok, and because they're the ones that I know for sure I'm like, these are good. I eat them all the time.
Yeah, it's good to have those 30 ones that you know that are good, the solid ones, the go-tos.
Right.
So I know we derailed a few times there. It's all good stuff. But where did you go to college? I know we've talked about your college a few times. I don't know if I've caught where you went yet.
So the college name is California University of Pennsylvania. It's a little town called California in Pennsylvania. It was about halfway between Pittsburgh and West Virginia. So very tiny town. They pretty much had a subway and a gas station. That's about it. And a college, of course. But I lived there for a few years after college as well. I just kind of stayed in the area before I eventually ended up moving to actual California for a couple years.
How did you like that?
It was a big adjustment. I always looked at my move to California as like a temporary thing. I knew it wasn't going to be the place that I was going to end up. Even whenever I went there initially, it was an adventure. And I mean, I was only like 23 at the time whenever I moved, right around there, 23, 24. So why not?
Yeah.
And I did enjoy my time out there. I ended up bowling whenever I was out there as well. Joined a league. Unfortunately, COVID happened very, very shortly after I joined. I think I started bowling again in November after a couple year hiatus from just being a poor, recently graduated college student. And I started in November, and I think it was, March when the pandemic hit and all the bowling alleys closed down and whatnot. So that was disappointing, because it was something where I was like, I was really looking forward to getting back into this and whatnot, but ended up having to wait about another year or so before everything started opening back up again, and I was able to bowl consistently again.
And that was California, or because this is around the time frame you moved to Alabama, correct?
Yeah, I moved to Alabama in, actually, I think it was 2022. I moved to Alabama. So yeah, this was all within, I only bowled really one season whenever I was out in California. So it was short-lived while I was out there, but I met a lot of great people and definitely miss bowling with some of them.
What is it that took you from California to Alabama? And then you can go. Sorry, Michael.
No, you're good. You're good.
So that was the move where I decided I want to live somewhere and stay there. Because I had moved around a lot, like from apartment to apartment during college, of course. And like I mentioned, I always saw my move out in California as something that would be temporary anyways. And after the pandemic and all the other just life, I was ready to kind of find a place and stick with it and be able to have like an established group of friends and people that I know, where I know that I'm not just going to end up saying goodbye to them all one day because I'm moving again. So looked around different places, did a road trip, and Alabama was, Huntsville specifically, sorry, was suggested to me. And at first I was like, how would I move to Alabama? Like, that's like probably one of the last states I would think about. But I visited Huntsville, and during my short visit here, I was like, you know what? Actually, this is really nice. It's warm. There's things to do. It's not like a huge city, but there's still different stuff going on here. So it was kind of like a happy middle ground of a lot of things that I was looking for, checked off a lot of boxes. I could afford to move here, which was another big plus. And so after I got down here, met a lot of people, and I've decided that it's probably where I'm going to stay, at least for quite a while.
Now, all I was going to ask you, Melanie, is what did you do with your time during the shutdown? And how was it out in California? Like, paint us a picture.
It sucked. It was pretty rough. So at that time, I had worked in a Verizon store as like a sales rep. So of course, those were all closed for quite a while as well. So initially, I was just kind of sitting at home waiting for them to say, hey, you can come back to work now. So I did what everybody did in those first 2 weeks and did a bunch of cleaning, watched Tiger King, like went for walks around the neighborhood, like all that like weird pandemic stuff that everybody did. I was right there with them. But as it became a little bit longer and we realized, oh, this ain't going away as fast as what we originally thought it might have. I definitely started to get a bit bored. So most of my time was just kind of filled up with like still random stuff, because I was like waiting to go back to work until July, I think it was. I finally started going back to work in a store, and by that point I was so ready for it. There was only so many times that I could walk around the neighborhood. So went back to work, and shortly after I found out that they were like, oh, we're actually not going to reopen the store at all. So I ended up doing customer service from home for a little bit. Terrible job. It was not enjoyable whatsoever. Quit that within 6 months. I was not cut out for it. And at that point, shortly after, I finally started working for a local company in the side of marketing that I wanted to do, which is like the more creative side, like I was mentioning. And I got to do blog posts, social media, work on the website, and a lot more fun things. And that was whenever things were kind of more so back to normal. They still did have times where like we would work from home part of the time and then be in the office part of the time. And it was just kind of that weird in between for a while. But I remember whenever I moved, there was still a lot of like in-store mask mandates and stuff in California at that time, like even in 2021 going into 2022 timeframe. And as soon as I got out of California, it was like almost being in a whole different world, because that was the one area where they were kind of, all of the safety precautions were much more prolonged there than they were in a lot of other states. So once I left, I was like, oh, nobody's doing all this stuff anymore, and there's less online ordering and less mandates, and it was kind of, at that point it was almost like I can just live again.
Well, that's the reason I was asking, is because like there's a lot of stuff, of course per states, every state was different, but we were kind of in that room where, like I said, we went back to the shop in June of 2020, and then the mask mandates came in. Of course, like you said, half of them were following it, half of them weren't. And, people were just glad to be back out, and bowling experienced a boom when we came back.
Really?
And it was probably at least a solid 2 years. Like our summers, like normally summer is the downtime, like what it is right, what it was this past summer. That's how it usually is in the summertime in the bowling centers. But the June 2020, 2021, even 2022, it was like, holy cow, we got people coming in here at all the times of the seasons now, and it's something that they weren't really, I didn't think they were amply prepared for, in the sense, because I mean, to be honest with you, hindsight, nobody was really prepared for how to handle it coming back.
No,
but it was being, like I said, it was a big boom. That's all I'll say. It was a big boom. But now we're starting to see that kind of level off again and starting to come back, because it's fixing to be fall time. And so, I was just curious about that, because, like I said, I'd heard that California was one of the worst states for restrictions. So with you having ample knowledge of that, I just wanted to share that with us.
Yeah, during the initial shutdowns and whatnot, I mentioned like I would just go for walks around the neighborhood quite a bit, because what else am I going to do? Might as well go in and go outside, get some fresh air. And it was one of the things that I could actually go out of the house and do at that point, for an extended period of time. And I remember like walking down the sidewalk, and there would be other people also doing the same thing, because they probably had the same thoughts as me. Hey, it's one way I can actually get out of my house. But they would be walking with masks on, and instead of like walking past a person on the sidewalk, they'd like walk across to the other side of the street. And then I was like, this is nuts. I mean, we're outside. I get it. We don't know what's going on. I don't know their health conditions or that sort of thing, but it still felt very crazy. It was weird to just not even be able to like have like any sort of interaction with other people. And I am a little introverted. Like I definitely enjoy my time at home, but that was way too much time at home.
Correct. I completely agree.
Yeah.
All right.
And so you made the move to Alabama, and then you walked into AMF Pin Palace there.
I did. Yes. It was one of those things where, as I think I got here mid-May, and a week later was whenever the summer league at Pin Palace started, and I had gone into Pin Palace earlier that week and was like, hey, when are your leagues? I definitely know that I want to join one. And they had gave me, I think it was Thursdays and Fridays. They're like, I know those two are about to start up, so come on one of those days. I was like, great, Thursday it is. Walked in, of course, didn't know anybody at all. And I remember there was this older couple there that said, oh, like, are you on a team already? I said, in. And they said, okay, we have one spot open on our team. If you want to bowl with us, like, we'd love to have you. And I was like, okay, like, I have no idea who these people are. I don't know who anybody is. They seemed nice. And that was Tom and Sue Rogers. And they ended up being a great couple to bowl with. I really enjoyed talking to Sue, and it was a really great first team in Alabama to join on. They really made me feel kind of at home here and whatnot. And we had some different things to talk about because they were originally from Ohio, so we could compare like the weather and whatnot, and just had a really enjoyable time. So finally was able to bowl a little bit more consistently, which was great. And once I got to Pin Palace, I think I bowled there for the summer, the fall, and then the summer again. And after that point, I decided to switch to bowling on Monday nights at Stars and Strikes. And there I bowl with a different group of people, but it's been a great place to bowl as well. I haven't really, I mean, I always meet really nice people through bowling, it seems. But yeah, I've enjoyed that.
I bowled over there at Stars and Strikes. How is it, the difference in lanes? I've never been bowled over there yet.
I'd say the biggest difference is just the scorekeeping. Just having those more up-to-date scorekeepers. That was the biggest thing for me, is it actually shows like how fast your ball is going down the lane. And I was like, I really want to be able to see that. And at Pin Palace, it doesn't have that. And anytime that we'd have to like correct a score or something, like I'd worked in a bowling alley before. Most of them like are pretty easy. You can kind of figure it out, no problem. That one, I'm not the best at changing the scores, and the scorekeepers at Pin Palace, they're a bit rough to work with sometimes.
1989 technology.
Is it that rough? 1989.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's an AMF advantage. AMF advantage scoring system. I mean, they have a lot. It's a lot of computer program codes and such. So that's probably what makes it. That's probably what makes it more difficult to your recreational, once or twice a week bowler, league bowler, recreational bowler, have you. So no, totally get it. I always told them that if they ever got a new scoring system, I wasn't going to learn it. That way, I don't know anything about it, and they have to go ask somebody else instead of me.
Yeah, I imagine anytime that you're trying to bowl on league or just on your own, people probably see you and they're like, "Hey!" You're like, "No, this is my off time. Don't talk to me."
Oh, Dustin's seen this in person, so yeah.
And done. It's very similar to the customer states we did with you trying to eat, but didn't we do one? Have we done it yet? The customer states with stuff like that bugging you, like while you're on league and other things.
We haven't got to those yet, but those are coming soon. We got a lot more good content coming. It's just been, like I said, we've really been really focusing on these podcasts, and like I said, I've been really glad to get back into the DGAB podcast again. I've really, like I said, I've really missed that dynamic. It's like, even though we do the two podcasts, they are different in their own unique way. So that's what makes, again, it's good to have difference in your programs and such. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say that that'd be the biggest difference between the two centers is less so the lanes and more just like the atmosphere and whatnot. Like things are definitely a little bit more updated at Stars and Stripes.
Just a little. And
For
last,
sure.
kind of on the topic, we didn't bring it up yet, but have you ever done string bowling? Have you done that before?
Ooh, yes. Once or twice. They have it at Main Event here in Huntsville, and I went there not knowing that they had it, but tried it out. I thought it was interesting, and there was a few times where pins fell that should not have fell. Like there was no way I hit that pin, and it fell. So I don't think that they're the most accurate for just having fun. Perfectly fine, but for anything more serious, I don't think it'd be the best idea. I don't think that they have the accuracy to be able to be like for something worth for a league or whatnot, for example, or definitely not tournaments. So that's my thoughts on them.
Yeah,
we've had very mixed reaction to the string pin debate. It's been very back and forth. There's some people like I did calling all bowlers last night, and we had an actual sole proprietor on first one out of the entire calling all bowlers series, and he basically said, "Here's the deal. It's hard to pay a mechanic 50 to 60,000 a year full time because you got to put in 60, 70 hours and preventative maintenance and everything. And the string
Yes.
pins kind of really reduced that preventative maintenance measure by he said anywhere between 45 to 50%. So when you cut that overhead out, it's just if you're going to build a new center, it's going to have to be the string pins for that reason. So definitely, again, very different back and forth perspectives. I
Yeah.
know we had somebody in the HUSBC forum post about potentially maybe one day building a center with the string pins, and I know it got met with a lot of resistance.
I can see that. I can definitely see the business side too, because I mean, everything is getting more expensive, and in order to compete, you've got to figure out ways to cut costs. So I can definitely see bowling centers in the future having like a hybrid, like having a section for, okay, these are our lanes dedicated to league bowling and competing and whatnot. This is our section dedicated to just people who want to go bowl to have fun. But also at the same time, most of a bowling alley's money coming in does come from league bowling. That's kind of the thing that keeps a lot of them open and afloat. So it'll be interesting to see how that ends up panning out. I have also heard people or like rumblings of different studies and whatnot where they're trying to figure out like the accuracy point of it. Is it the same? Is it different? And I think I read something that said, oh, in this test that we did, it was very close to being like the same score that they would have gotten bowling on string pins versus regular. But I think there's probably some improvements that still need to be made there. And we'll see that as time goes on. Hopefully they're able to do more research into it on that side, and we'll see where things go. But I don't think that, I mean, I'm sure that bowling alleys that are already established are not going to be rushing to switch over at this point.
See, it's just like you said, we're going back and forth on it. One person on TikTok here said, string me up with a thumbs up. Another one said string pin with a thumbs down. So it's just, it's really down the middle. It's really down the middle. There's no one group leaning more towards string pins or not leaning towards string pins than there is the other. So it's just one of those things. I get, and again, it comes down to anybody that's a traditionalist is going to, they're going to fight this new thing. and that's just natural. It's going to happen no matter
Right.
what topic we're discussing. Whether again, like I kind of well, it's not really, you can't really equate this, but it's kind of like the whole. You guys remember when baseball was having a boom back in '98? McGuire and Sosa. They broke Maris's record in a single season. It was putting butts in seats, and then all of a sudden they were like, no, no, we can't. You can't do steroids. That's bad. It's bad for your body. And then they're trying to uphold a moral when they were trying to sell tickets. So it's kind of like, with bowling, we're trying to sell. We're trying to sell the game. We're trying to sell the sport. And what better way than the cover stocks doing what they do, helping increase higher scores. And for example, Mike last night on Calling All Bowlers, the amount of 300s and 800s honor scores he had in a single season was, if I'd say, professional opinion, if that was the case down here in some of our houses, they would be getting checked a lot more often than not.
And can you elaborate on that? When you say they get checked, what exactly does that mean?
So if you have, let's say you have a number of honor scores on a particular pair of lanes in any house. Okay. So let's say lanes 9 and 10 inside Penn Palace for the entire collective week, that let's say most, if not all, of their honor scores came on that pair of lanes. That may come under a little bit of scrutiny. So they would say, hey, something's going on here. This doesn't seem right. The pattern's not, it's just like they're not used to seeing that kind of, result. So they would get somebody from the association to come out and run tapes on the lanes, which basically mean it would measure the lanes. It would measure every aspect of each pair of those lanes. And they used to do that back in the late 80s, early 90s, before reactive resin became a thing. Because the honor scores back in those days were totally unheard of. So I don't know if you guys know the name Glenn Allison, but he was the original Mr. 900. He did it in the early 80s in California. And what made his so unique is he did it on second shift of league, which means they didn't re-oil the lanes. And he shot that 900 on broke down oil. And these are on wood condition. These are on wood approaches, wood lane surfaces. And ABC ended up denying his 900. And it's come under a lot of scrutiny because of the amount of 900s we've had that have been certified throughout USBC and its history since 97. And everybody acknowledges Glenn Allison as Mr. 900. So it's one of those things that comes back to me personally, professional opinion here, Glenn Allison's 900. Again, it's impressive if you shoot 800. Let me get that out of the way first and foremost. But to shoot 900, to roll 36 strikes in a row on any condition is, first of all, it's out of this world, even as rare as it is now, and even as much as it's happening now. But for Glenn Allison to do what he did back in the early 80s with the equipment, with the technology that it was then, that is more than impressive. And the thing about it is, if I'm not mistaken, they actually have that bowling ball in Arlington in the bowling museum and the Bowling Hall of Fame. But they still have not sanctioned his 900 set. I don't understand. That baffles me. So anyway, going down history, we're going way down the rabbit hole now.
I think a little bit, but I mean, I think that's where it would get tricky for me. I would ask, hypothetically, in the string bowling conversation of like, how could you ever do a sanctioned event or anything sanctioned on string pins? I don't know that could ever, how that would work.
It's also crazy how much bowling has changed in the short amount of time that it has.
Right there.
I remember whenever I was in youth league, there was this guy that worked at the bowling alley that I was in, and he was like in his 90s at the time. This was early 2000s. And as a kid, he used to work as a pin setter. And here I am as a kid bowling in this bowling alley. It's a modern bowling alley with all the different equipment and everything that we have now. And there's this guy standing here who used to work as a pin setter. So it's crazy that like Like that's one lifetime that much change has happened. So it's probably going to look a lot different whenever I'm 92.
Oh, you're talking about 92. I won't make it that long.
Yeah, I guess we never know. Wishful thinking, though.
Yeah.
Imagine. Well, Melanie, let's come back. I got a few questions for you. I'll hit you with these. You can answer for us. Give us, if you would, your high game, your high series, and then what you currently have in your arsenal.
Okay. So high game, 257, high series, 669. If I remember right, those were shot at the same time. And then what I currently have in my arsenal, my favorite is honestly probably my spare ball. It's a Storm Ice. It's like the blue and white mix one. It looks really cool. I have a Rotogrip Hustle and then a Track Paragon Hybrid. And I need to add to it at some point soon, hopefully. But one of the reasons why it is a little bit smaller is I was explaining earlier. So after college and being broke and then the pandemic and all the things that life brought, once I finally was able to get back into bowling consistently, I realized, crap, this bowling ball I've had since I was in high school. It's a 12-pound bowling ball, and I haven't purchased anything new in years. And at that point, I had already got into weightlifting and everything else in college, so I was just overpowering that ball at that point, and I was like, okay, I need to start upgrading things here. So went to a 14-pound ball, definitely a better grip in there as well, and it felt like it fit my hand a little bit better than my old bowling ball did too. And at that point, once I got my new spare ball and the Rotogrip Hustle, I saw my average go from like 160, 185, or I'm sorry, 160, 165, clear up to like 185 in like the spring to summer, or fall to summer. I'm sorry, one season, whatever that is, whatever that time frame is. It wasn't very long.
You got it right.
Yeah. So I definitely want to add to that at some point here in the near future. I did really enjoy the last Bowlapalooza event that I did at Bin Palace, where I got to actually throw the ball down the lane before I purchased it. I'm not very married to one brand or anything like that. I'm pretty open on brand and that sort of thing. So the last time I did that, I went into it with, well, let's just see what I like and what feels good. So that's how I ended up with my Track Paragon Hybrid. I enjoyed that ball from the moment that I rolled down the lane. So I'm hoping to be able to do another event like that here in the near future and pick on another bowling ball. So it's really nice that we're able to do that now and actually get a little bit better of a feel of how it is before you buy it. Because, I mean, if you buy a bowling ball without using it or anything like that beforehand, like it's hit or miss if you're gonna really enjoy it. Like there's only so much research and whatnot you can do.
Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely keep you in mind because we got another one. We're getting ready since, like I said, fall winter league is going to start forming back up. We haven't decided, but there's going to be a September day or October day in that range. So I'll definitely keep you in mind when we get that date finalized.
Perfect. That would be amazing.
I have a question for you, Melanie, but Mike, on that one, do they know yet? You may not be able to tell us, even if there are any, but are there any awesome drops coming out for that? Any new balls?
Well, if you guys have checked, Brunswick laid down 2. Brunswick, give me just a second here. Track's got another one called the Stealth Hybrid. And let's see here. Ebonite. Vaporize. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, vaporize. No, nothing from Ebonite. But Brunswick, vaporize, mesmerize, and Columbia 300 has the Atlas hybrid. And then that other one, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm drawing a blank here. But I think there's like three. Like I said, 3 or 4. Yeah. Thanks, guys, in the comments. Help me out here. Yeah. So vaporize, mesmerize from Brunswick, Hitter Pearl from Radical, and Storm has a new one called the Summit Accent. So those are a couple of them right there. We're gonna have about 8 or 9 of them. Like I said, we haven't finalized the lineup. But as soon as as soon as I get the flyer made, we'll have the official lineup for everyone that's interested in Bowlapalooza.
I definitely want to do another one. Yeah, those are very cool events. I agree with you on that, Melanie, because I got the Pearl MB tour at that one, because you get to throw them, you get to feel them out, change the weights, everything like that. So they're very cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it also showed me what I didn't want to buy as well. There was a few where as soon as I threw one ball, I was like, absolutely not. Moving on to something else.
Here's a question for you, Melanie. Being from, as the league bowler, coming in there once, twice a week, what have you, how do you feel in being the league bowler when you walk into a bowling center? Like, how does that perspective feel from your end? Like, do you feel like people, because you and I have had the conversation, you're going to run into 10 million coaches and maybe 1 or 2 of them are going to be, legit. But like, how do you feel when you walk in, and how do you handle those types of situations when, people are just always trying to come and say, hey, do this, hey, use your hand this, drop your shoulder that,
Yeah. So it's interesting. So as an adult, I'll stick with just like my experiences as an adult, because I think whenever you're a kid in like youth bowling and whatnot, it's a little different because you have coaches there that are like, okay, this is a person that's telling me normally what to do. And my coach was at that point was always a very much like, make sure you're following through straight up. So that got drilled into my head from a young age. But as an adult coming in, I think I always kind of maybe surprised people a little bit. I've been told by quite a few people that I have a very smooth ball. Like it comes right off and you don't really even hear much of a sound. So I've mostly only listened to the people who I bowl with on a very regular basis for what to do or what changes to make or whatnot. And there's a guy that I bowl with currently who I really enjoy his approach to coaching whenever he does, because he'll normally just kind of ask a question like, oh, that one looked like it kind of came off your hand a little weird. Like, how did that feel? And I would say like, oh yeah, that one, like I did this or I did that. Like, I always can figure out what I'm doing in my head after the fact most of the time. So it just takes a little bit of poking for me to be able to say like, oh, here's what's going on. Or sometimes whenever other people have like tried to give me advice or whatnot, I've said, well, okay, here's what I'm going to try. Like, I already have it in my head what I'm going to do. And I kind of shut down the coaching from just the random people a little bit quicker. I don't really give them a whole lot of time to go down a rabbit hole, because once they start, I'm normally like, oh yeah, either yes, that was what I was gonna do next, or I'm gonna do this and then this or whatnot. Like, there's a plan in my head, and just kind of letting other people know that, hey, I already have a plan is normally enough for them to be like, oh, okay, like she's got it. She knows what's going on. But there are a few people who, the ones that I bowl with more frequently, that I will talk through things a little bit more in depth with than just any person who happened to look over and see me throw 2 balls.
Yeah.
Hey, Dustin, go ahead and keep on going. My mom's trying to call me and I need to take this, okay? So I'll be back soon.
Actually, this will probably be one of the last ones I have for you, and I just thought of this question. So it could either be a great answer or you're going to be like, nope.
Okay.
So with the marketing, because I've worked in marketing a little bit myself, I totally agree that creative is definitely where I'm at. So have you found any ways, just kind of like by happenstance, where you're like, oh, hey, that would work, to where you've gotten any bowling type of theme, anything bowling related, where it's like fallen into something marketing for you and you're like, oh, cool.
So maybe once or twice. So whenever I was in college, I worked at a bowling alley, and they knew that like I was in school for at that point, I think I was still public relations. I changed my major pretty fast into marketing, but they're still like very related. And that center was starting a breakfast menu. They were doing like some different like specials with their menu and whatnot. And they asked like, oh, would you like to like make the menus for us? And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of like what I'm going to school for. So yeah, definitely. So I designed 2 separate menus for like their food specials to be able to use at that bowling alley. So that was like a fun win for me, which was awesome. But outside of that, I haven't gotten to do much with like it'd be really, I think it'd be really cool to like work for a bowling company that like makes bowling balls or that sort of thing one day. Like that would be awesome to be able to do like that part of marketing. But I'm more on the business to business side right now. But outside of that, I guess I can also relate that to the TikTok as well, where I make like I'll post bowling videos every now and then. But I think social media is its own animal, and anybody who works in social media, like you can't expect somebody to manage our social media plus do this other laundry list of items over here. Like there's so much with social media that you've got to be involved in all the time, keep up on the trends and just all the changes that occur with it so frequently. Like that is a one full-time job in itself.
Yeah.
So that's not what I do for my regular job. So for me and my TikTok, it's a lot of like experimentation, and it feels weird because I'm like, oh, it's weird to like have to like try to figure all this stuff out. Like I work in marketing. You would think like, oh yeah, she probably knows what she's doing with this. No, I'm in it figuring it out with everybody else.
She makes good points, because sometimes editing them videos from your phone, it's a task in itself.
Yes, it can be pretty time consuming. And then I had an issue recently where went through, edited the video, all that sort of stuff, and whenever I went to post it, I either forgot something or missed something or whatnot. I was like, oh crap, I missed that. Well, I'll just re-upload it real quick. Apparently that's a big no-no. Don't delete your TikTok videos. Because then all of a sudden I was getting like things flagged for violating community guidelines and all this other stuff. And I was like, oh no, like what is going on here? And you can't get straight answers or anything. You just kind of have to figure it out yourself. And eventually that was like a 1 week of getting through that. So it was an adventure, but learning along the way.
Yeah.
Dustin, you have anything else?
I got one more for you, Melanie. If for those bowlers that may not be physically active outside of bowling, right? What's one thing with the whole fitness and health type of thing that a bowler could implement to up their bowling game through fitness?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that one is is pretty layered. Because if you think about whenever you're bowling and like through your approach, your body does a lot of movement that you might not originally think about whenever you're going through it. Like you have balance, like your arm with the bowling ball, you've got to be able to handle that. Your core is stabilizing you. You're going into like a lunge position and whatnot. Like there's a lot of movement that you do that, even though it's a sport where, yes, you can drink a beer while you're doing it, it's still a sport. So anything strength related, so lifting weights, that helps in so many areas of life. Just having that extra strength helps with so many different areas. But I think the balance piece is also a big thing, because people don't realize like how much balance that bowling kind of takes whenever you're in that approach. I mean, I've fallen over at the approach before. It happens. But the important thing is all right, if you do like slip or something happens, you hit your leg, whatnot, and you end up falling over, how easy is it going to be for you to get back up and keep going? And I think that's the part where just being so active is extremely helpful, because not only do I have the balance to hopefully not do that most of the time, but also just like the stamina with tournaments, like bowling 12 games in a weekend, like that's a lot.
Yeah.
And especially with like, if you're doing that in summer and it's hot and it's not fun, and the fans in the bowling alley are going 100 miles an hour over top of your head and looking like they're going to fall out of the ceiling, you've got to be able to work through that. It makes it a lot easier to already have that stamina kind of in place. So it doesn't have to be anything like super intense. I know that there's studies out there that say just even going to the gym and having a workout twice a week is significant, gives you a significant enough benefit just from that little bit of time that you invest into it. So yeah, a little bit is much, much better than nothing. And you'll definitely see that whenever you're bowling too. Feel it.
How many times are you going to the gym per week now?
So right now it's only an average of 4. I normally don't make it a 5th day of the week to the gym, but I'm also trying to incorporate other things into there too. So I'll go to a yoga class whenever I can. Another great one to include, like if you're trying to get active, or even the people who are really active, get that good stretch in. It helps tremendously. So trying to go to some yoga classes, and I've also gotten more involved in sand volleyball recently. So doing that, and also just it's summertime, so just trying to get outside in general, do some hikes every now and then. And yeah, if anything that I can do that's active and gets me outside, I love it.
Nobody told you about that humid Alabama heat when you moved here, did they?
Yes and no. So I knew it was gonna be a little rough and that it would be much more humid, but I don't mind it as much. There's definitely some days where I'm like, oof, this is rough. I'm going to go sit inside in the air conditioning, but I will take this humidity over snowstorms any day.
Well, we've been getting our little one a year. Like it seems like it started at like the last 2 Januaries. We've been iced in. So
yeah, definitely. And that part did kind of suck. It wasn't fun to have to like sit in your house for a week and just wait for everything to melt. But if I only have to do it once a year, that is totally fine with me. I remember in college one year, we had a snowstorm, and I woke up in the morning to 18 inches of snow being on the ground that weren't there the day before, and I had to shovel my car out from underneath of it, and then half the roads weren't even plowed. So I was just kind of I was stuck there for a little bit. So you looked outside and you see all these college kids, like nobody has snow shovels, so they're like out there with like brooms and 18 inches of snow.
Yeah.
It was really funny looking back on it.
So one of my subscribers on TikTok, they're asking me to ask you. They said, "Can we get a one-on-one match with Mike?" I don't think you guys understand that. I can't tell you the last time I practiced, y'all. So you know what? I'll tell you what would be pretty funny is if we could get to main event and we could bowl on string pins for the first time. That would be something. I know Dustin and I've been talking about getting over there just to try it. That way we can formulate our own opinion on that. So there you go, Jeff. I asked.
That would be interesting. Like see how long it takes before if we start noticing anything weird happening, try out different bowling balls, different approaches.
The only thing I'd be afraid of is we'd have to pick a day where I was pretty sure that they oiled their lanes, because from what I hear, they only oil them like once a week.
That's rough.
Having to play fifth arrow, which I've done a couple of times here in the past month and a half, that is no fun. I can't do it. I mean, I can, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
I'm not into that yoga stuff yet, which I've definitely been. You bringing it up has made me definitely give it some thought, and other people I know that on our Sunday night league that do it, and so yeah, there you go.
There's a lot of free yoga events that happen in Huntsville too. That's normally what I end up picking is those kind of events to just get out there, and I mean, if they're available, take advantage.
Well, and there's the thing I like about yoga, there's like different kinds. You can do yoga for different things. To where I've done it, I really like the mental aspect of it too, where if I get myself kind of riled up, I can slow my mind down, and get my stuff back together. With the slower, and it's for more opening up the body and things like that. But then I've just gotten my ass kicked in some classes where it's like yoga I used to do community classes when I was in Missouri. They'll wreck you. So you can do the peaceful bliss yoga type stuff, or you can go and just get your world wrecked and like all in between. So I love yoga. It's very beneficial on numerous levels.
Agreed. And initially I used to be the kind of person that was like, yoga, like, oh, that seems so boring. I'm not into the whole like breathing and meditative kind of part of it. But I ended up trying a class that had a really good teacher where it was less focused on the meditative side and more on the like you were moving.
Yeah.
And that was the part where I was like, oh, this is actually like really good. Like we moved throughout different positions and whatnot, did some balance work. And I always found those to be interesting, like just trying to balance in these different positions, and it's challenging in a different way for sure.
Definitely recommended though.
Agreed. Yes.
I got one last question here from my end. Okay.
So
anybody looking to get into what you do for a living, what advice would you give them?
Oof. That's a hard one. Marketing for me was not the easiest thing to get into. Getting my degree, that was probably the easy part, honestly. So got my degree, and where I was at in Pennsylvania, and at the time, like remote work wasn't as common as it is now post-pandemic. And if I wanted to work in marketing for a lot of companies, I'd have to like drive into Pittsburgh based on where I was living. And I was like, that's something that I definitely don't want to do. So I found it a little difficult. And there's also a lot of companies out there who will list marketing jobs that are actually things like you sit in a Costco and sell AT&T. And I was like, okay, that's not what I'm looking for either. Like that's more of a sales role. So it's hard to kind of sift through all that and find the type of job that you're looking for. So initially I did start in sales, and that's whenever I worked for Verizon and doing sales in the store, and it was a great job. Like, but it wasn't something that I wanted to do long term. And it wasn't until I was out in California that I actually got like an entry level marketing job, like what I was imagining in my head the whole time. And that was also after I had gotten my master's degree in marketing. I don't think that was really totally necessary for that job. I don't think that was kind of like, oh my God, she has a master's degree. Like it was still an entry level marketing job, but I think it's definitely helped me since that job. So yeah, if anybody was looking to go into marketing, the job hunt it's not the best. And I'm in a few marketing groups on Facebook, and that seems to be a recurring theme that I see amongst people is just the finding the right fit job it can be difficult. Because there's a lot of job listings out there where you can tell that they're like we need you to manage the social media, but we also need you to do all these other things too. And ideally they should be separate jobs. So that's the thing that I like about my job right now is I'm able to focus in on the area of marketing that I love most and not have to do it all. And also work from home, which is great. So I don't think I'm going to be leaving that position for a while. But I have thought before about like, if anything were to happen and I were to end up not having this job at some point, I would probably dip my toes back into the job market. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and I might try something different. So I know a lot of people that have like a bachelor's degree in something not even related to marketing that somehow found their way into it. So definitely is a wild card whenever it comes to marketing. But yeah, if it's something that people really want to do, the bachelor's degree was probably worth it. I hope so. I'm paying for it.
Yeah. Okay. And last thing, I just thought about this. So, bowling wise, tell us some of your bowling goals.
Ooh. Well, I definitely want to stick with doing more tournaments. That's something that I've gotten into more in the past year and a half, 2 years since I've been in Alabama, and definitely want to stick with that. But also, I'd love to see that high game and high series become a little bit higher. Of course, the 300 game would be an amazing goal. I'd also love to just see like some of the higher 200s scores every now and then. And another one is getting my average closer to the 200 mark. Right now I'm around 190 for an average. So definitely want to put in a little bit more work into just getting that up there consistently. And I think some of the things that we worked on the last time during our last lesson together have definitely helped, because since then I had the one game where my first 6 frames were all strikes. So I've definitely been able to see in my head, like whenever I'm bowling, okay, I remember talked about during this lesson, and I'm actually seeing them as I bowl. So I guess that goes back to whenever I was talking about everybody wants to be a coach and who do you listen to? Well, for me, it's normally up here in my head before anybody else has a chance to say anything about it. So that's where I go to first.
Okay. All right, we're gonna do this. I've kind of want to make it a habit of doing this on all the DGAP podcasts, Dustin, since you, Curtis, and myself started that one episode. So I'm gonna give you a scenario, Melanie. You tell me which one you would rather have. Okay.
Okay.
Yep, Dustin knows where I'm going with this. Would you rather roll a 160 game and get $100 cash for the high game, or would you rather roll a 300 and win no money? See, she's actually taking her time thinking about this. She's not jumping to the whole conclusions like Dustin.
I didn't need to think. I never think for that question. We'll never need to think for that question.
No, I'm just saying she's giving us some thought here.
I didn't.
You know, I'm messing with you, buddy. No, the reason I asked this is because we had this debate on a previous episode, and Curtis and Dustin immediately were like, "I want to shoot 300." And I mean, don't get me wrong. For somebody that sees it from both sides of the coin, completely understand. I really do. But I'm at the point now where it's like, give me that 160 game that I'm grinding out, and I'm taking $100 in my pocket if I'm winning the high game with that.
You know, I was actually kind of leaning towards the 160. Hey,
look,
that's $100.
I've had to scrape up. Look, I've had to scrape up people getting on my side. Okay, everybody's been going Dustin and Curtis's side, so it's refreshing to have somebody think about coming over to my side of the coin on that debate.
Yeah.
If there's an equation where I can bowl a 300, I'm gonna do it. I don't want $100. I want the $100 is nothing. Like that's not even close to being worth a 300 game. 1,000. If the price was different, I might have to think. But if the price is $100, then no, all day long 300. Are you kidding me? That's just me. Me, not even a side. I just want a 300. That's bad. I want
to check this out. We got some.
Take the money.
hang on, and then Derek's coming in here.
Of course, Derek would.
Hey.
What's up, Derek?
Yeah, I'd probably go with the 160 and the $100 because I mean I could put that towards that new bowling ball, expanding my arsenal, like I talked about, and also like it honestly wasn't that long ago where I was bowling 160s for an average, and I've definitely had once or twice where I've bowled less than a 160 and just kind of had like a terrible night bowling. So I mean, I've done worse for no money. Might as well get $100.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's all I got, Dustin.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we got some people on TikTok that are kind of going back and forth. 300. I take the money. So good. This is a good fun-filled action debate in the sport of bowling.
It is a good question. Yeah.
Now,
I mean, I still would like to get that 300 at some point. But.
Once I roll a 300 and I have one to my credit, maybe my answer will be different. I doubt it because then I'm going to want two 200 games or two 300 games. But yeah, as far as it is now, it's camp 300.
Again, I see. Like, look, Dustin, you have to admit to this. Like, versus that episode, when we started that debate, I have become more open-minded towards both sides of the coin.
It is a hard one because at first you're like, "Oh wow, 300, I could do that," but then you're like, "There's $100 over there on the table."
Yeah, but just in my mind, that's why 100 is not very appetizing because $100 doesn't really go that far anymore. Like when you mentioned $100, that's not even half of a bowling ball.
Yeah, that is true. But at the same time as well, I always say whenever I like enter tournaments or that sort of thing, if I get to make some money while I'm bowling, like that's a good day to me. Yeah, I don't care if it's like whatever place it ends up being. I remember whenever I bowled out in California, the bowling alley that I was at would have tournaments every now and then with the holidays, Baker's tournaments. So our same team entered 2 different ones. First one, we ended up winning, and it was near Thanksgiving, so we got our prize winnings and also a Costco pie for each of us. But then the second time we were in it, we were close to the top again. We were in the top 3, I think it was. So we ended up bowling the extra game or 2 to figure out, like, okay, who's going to win first, second, third, and whatnot. And the team who was in the lead at that point was like, they were super into it. They're like, oh, we're going to win. Like, they were focused. And we're like, you know what? It'd be great to win. If we don't, we still won some money at this point. Like, we're still placing. We're still having fun. We're having a great time. It was enjoyable, and we came close to winning, but we didn't win that one. We got either second or third. I think it was second. And even still, we're like, yes, this was a great night.
That does it with me. Everything's all said and done on my end here, Dustin.
Yep, Mike, you want to take us out, man? Since we don't have Curtis here, we've been getting better at wrapping everything up.
Well, it's taking a lot of practice, but no. First and foremost, Melanie, just want to say thank you for joining us on DGAB episode 9. I really
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We're glad to have you on. Everybody else out there watching, thank you for joining us. And as Dustin says, I'm going to wrap it up here. Not 100% like Curtis, but I'm still going to give it my best shot here. If you've not done so already, like, follow, and subscribe to me here on TikTok. Subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can have access to all of my bowling content, and like and follow on Facebook. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram. Again, TikTok, like we said earlier, I think we all collectively agree TikTok is kind of the number one for all of us right now. So definitely, if you got a chance, become a subscriber to the channel. It's just $2.99. That is cheaper than a Happy Meal now. So just want to say I appreciate you guys, everybody out there, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Thank you for watching. And I'm going to pass it off to the pillar of hosting from Mr. Cap's Wisdom Show himself. Take us out.
I'm not saying on that. That was very well done, Michael. Melanie, thanks for being on, as Mike said, with a guest with us. Everybody, thanks for joining, and we will see you for episode
10.
Soon.
We will let you guys know when we've got a date punctured. You know what I'm trying to say. When we've got it confirmed. Yeah, that one. And again, Dustin, Melanie, thank you for joining. Everybody out there, thank you for watching. And we will talk to y'all real soon.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you next time.